I can't believe we're already almost halfway through season 2 of Pen to Pod. Today's conversation, I'm talking with Frank J. Camacho, who is the author of The Monsters They Made Us that came out October 1st. Just like with Brittany Lewis, who I found through her amazing social media marketing, I also found Frank the same way. He has been hustling, marketing this self published book for so long, and everything he's posted has just gravitated me towards this story, these characters, and the setting of Driftmoor. Frank was so kind to give me an arc, which I started reading on my Kindle immediately because this book has everything that I love. And I think you guys are sensing a theme this season for sure. I have been a little self indulgent this season, this year, I guess, with all the authors that I have been interviewing. I have been seeking out newer books that I really wanted to read and I was so excited about. And that's kind of been the theme of this season is finding books I was excited about and just getting excited about talking to those authors about their writing craft and their inspirations. But let me read to you a little bit about The Monsters They Made Us. So this is for fans of supernatural dramas and dark academia. Comes a new tale of salt-soaked secrets, blood-bound legacies, and a coastal town where every wave carries the weight of centuries-old curses. Some monsters are born, others are made, but the worst are inherited. Like already sounds amazing, and trust me, it is. This book follows four different characters in the town of Driftmoor at a boarding school, where then supernatural things start happening. Dorothy arrives at Driftmoor Academy hoping to leave her past behind and become someone new. But after a car crash leaves her teetering between life and death, dark abilities awaken inside her. Whispers through the halls, nightmares claw at her sleep, and death follows wherever she goes. As Dorothy is pulled into the gilded world of Driftmoor's elite, pieces of a forgotten legacy begin to surface, along with a power she doesn't understand and a past someone tried to erase. And she's not the only one marked by what came before. Frank was such a pleasure to talk to. I feel like we had a lot in common from the types of shows that we watched. He was very inspired by a lot of the CW supernatural shows. Again, much like Brittany Lewis, who I talked with earlier this season. And this really sparked his love for emotionally tangled characters, those small town secrets, and anything supernatural drama. This is actually his first novel, his debut, and the first book in the Heirs of Driftmoor series. So if you read this, and it will leave off on, I don't want to spoil too much, it will leave off on a cliffhanger that will have your mouth open and you will be probably screaming into Frank's DMs, like, give me the second book. And if you want that type of read, I highly recommend reading The Heirs of Driftmoor. But instead of listening to me talk about his book, let's listen to Frank talk about his book. Here is my conversation with Frank J. Camacho. How was your day?
Good. How's yours?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm chilly, which is why I'm wearing a sweatshirt because my house is set at like a low degree. My husband's from Alabama and used to AC, so our house is usually a little chilly. And if I'm not wearing a sweatshirt, I'm freezing. But
Yeah,
other
it's
than
pretty
that,
cold. It's pretty cold out here right now, in New Jersey. It's like a cold front, I think.
yeah. Yeah, I'm in Cleveland, so we just had that like yesterday, and today's a little colder as well. So yeah, I do think a cold front is like coming through.
I mean, I'm not complaining. I prefer the cold, well, like the fall at
Me
least.
too.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. I've been so done with this like 90-degree high humidity weather. I was just in the Connecticut, New York area, and yeah, it was way worse, even humidity wise. And I was like, nope, nope, I'm ready for fall. And it's perfect. Your book is coming out at like the perfect time for fall season. I feel like it's a very fall or like a spooky season read.
It is. It is. So far, like the ARC readers that have read it also said the same thing that, it's a spooky season fall book. I mean, it does literally take place in the fall. It takes place from September to the beginning of November. It starts like Labor Day of September and it ends like on Halloween. Originally, I wanted to do the release during Labor Day, so it felt exactly the same, like concurrent to real life. But it didn't work out, so I picked October 1st. which is in the middle.
Nice. That's cool, and that is, like, such a short timeline, I feel like. So is there, like, a ticking clock for the book? Because it feels very intentional that it's ending on Halloween. Feels like something's
Yeah,
important happening there.
yeah, Halloween's I've always been a fan of like supernatural TV shows like
Mhm.
Vampire Diaries, Teen Wolf, and they've always done where it's like a big party or Halloween thing or some kind of holiday where something always goes down. And I kind of always been drawn to that. So I figured since I'm also going to be doing multiple books from book one's in the fall, and book two's in this winter, Halloween seemed like the right catalyst, and I just love Halloween, so it felt the right thing to do. I just knew it had to have a Halloween chapter-ish scene. So
Love that. Okay, I'm putting a pin in CW shows because we have a lot to discuss. Because I also love all of those TV shows. But I do usually like starting with place just because for me, when I read, I feel like setting is always such a fun character. And when it's done really well, it like really comes alive. It sets the tone, sets the atmosphere, could have a tie into the theme. And so I love starting with place. And I really liked what you said on your website, which was that you were born and raised in New Jersey, where the rolling hills and quiet nights have been the perfect setting to bring my characters to life. So I just love to know how you feel like where you grew up or where you live now impacts the stories that you write.
yeah, it's a really good question. So, like, as you said, I was born and raised in Jersey. The book takes place in Massachusetts, which I've only been to once, but I've done research over the years, and so I don't talk too much about Massachusetts to be told that I don't know enough. But so I knew it was going to be like a New England, East Coast kind of setting, and where I grew up and where I was born is completely different than what I'm writing about. Just demographics, crime. It was a very dangerous place where I grew up. So like where I live now is much the complete 180, I guess you would say, or 360 of where I grew up. I mean, it's quieter, safer, and so I feel like also the last couple of years, like I've been moving around a lot and kind of like different apartments, and this is like my first home, so I feel more situated, and I think that really helped a lot in getting like the nail in the coffin and being like, all right, time to get this story done. You can build roots here, or hopefully you can. So that's kind of where I was going with like that bio, where like it's a really hilly area, it's quiet, not too rural. Like my neighbors are still like 20 feet away, but it's much quieter. Again, like the roots of like situating somewhere really, I guess, brought a peace of mind to myself, and I was able to continue the writing.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I feel like before I moved to this house, I had like a different place that I was living every year, like a
Hmm.
decade. So I get that, or what feels like a decade. But so you said, you planted roots and then you finally felt comfortable or maybe secure enough to like get this story out. I guess how long has this story been waiting to be written? And do you feel like you've always identified as a writer?
Yeah, so this has been going on since like about 15 years ago, I'd say. And the identity of a writer is interesting. I don't know. I mean, I guess in a humble way, I guess like it's like saying like people are like, oh, there's an author and you're a writer. And like some people argue that you're an author only if you have a book out,
Mm,
which is, I guess, like a correct in the dictionary way. But yeah, I've always been a writer. Have I written as much as I've wanted to? No, especially with like after high school and like early college, just because college and life got in the way. But it's been in the works for 15 years. I started working on it by hand, not by choice. That was the only option I had at the time. And I'm suffering for it now. Like I feel like I have wrist pain every day, always like twisting my wrist, but the concept I've always remained the same.
yeah, that's awesome. I also relate to that. The book I'm working on, I feel like has been around for 10 plus years and like the concepts always stayed the same. It's just kind of been waiting for the
Mhm.
right moment to come out. So that's really great. And it seems like you already said that you gravitate towards, the supernatural TV shows. Is that kind of what you gravitate towards when you read as well? Like when you put the pen down?
Yes and no, but yes, mostly. So like I like a little like fantasy supernatural twist to it where like it's like witches or some kind of like superpowers or abilities or
Mhm.
yeah, the answer would be yeah.
Okay, great. I feel like we have the same taste in like TV shows, movies, books. Cause I agree. I feel like the best story is like something set a little in the real world with a twist of magic or some magical component. Is there a
Hmm.
reason why you feel like gravitated towards those types of stories?
There's no particular reason. I think it's just exposure, like
Mm.
self-exposure. Like that's always what I watched growing up. I was around for like the whole Twilight phase and all that, and Vampire Diaries, as I mentioned, Teen Wolf. It was just always something that I liked. And I think like I mean like if I go really far back to connect it to the story itself, there was a show that I used to watch that was on Discovery Kids, I think
Okay.
it was. It was like Strange Days at Blake Halsey High, or and they used to call it like Black Hole High because there was like some black hole in the school. It was like a boarding school setting. And that's really was like the first, I guess, supernatural-ish. It was more sci-fi, but more supernatural-ish show that really prompted like this story. But the shows itself, like yeah, like I just felt not victim, but watch all of them.
Okay, so you have this one particular TV show has that boarding school element, maybe gives you like the seed of that idea. Do you want
Hmm.
to take us through that journey from getting those seeds of ideas and how you kind of started to think about this 15 years ago and how the draft has maybe changed over time?
Yeah, sure. So, it was called Strange Days at Blake Wolsey Highs, like I said, and like I didn't have the cable channel. It was like my mom had this family friend that we would see all the time, like on weekends, and she had like the specific cable package that had Discovery Kids. So I would, like while they were doing their thing, I'd go and like watch it on her TV and all that, and then I'd go home and be like, "Ugh, I really want to watch this show," and like we didn't have the package for it. Eventually, we got it, but so like that was like the first show that I watched that had like a boarding school setting. And when I started writing, I guess you could call it was like a mixture of like fan fiction, but my
Mhm.
own as well. Except I never really shared it with anybody. Maybe like one friend I had in middle school that she would read it. So it was like a mixture of like fan fiction and my own. And I could just start writing like, my own twist to it. So the early versions had like that sci-fi elements, very light sci-fi, like again, like a black hole involved in your school, and like the supernatural occurrences that occur because of that. You might have to edit this out, but I don't know if you can hear my dog whining.
Oh, no, I can't. You're good.
Okay, he's attached to me by the hip. He has a lot of anxiety,
That's
so
okay.
he's
I have a little ghost cat that I'm sure will enter scream at the door here soon.
so he's like right there. But sorry about that.
No, no worries.
So it started with the boarding school element, and like I said, there was different versions that came and went, but the premise was always going to be a boarding school with a group of young adults, teenagers, whatever you want to call them, experiencing something supernatural or out of this world in a real life setting.
Mhm.
So that premise has always stayed the same, but it's gone through so many crazy like drafts. Like they were in a band at one point.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah, and I was like using actual real band's music in the writing, which was obviously a copyright thing, but it wasn't going anywhere, so it was safe under my eyes.
Yeah.
And then there was like a element of like Digimon at one point involved.
Oh,
I don't know if you ever watched that as a kid.
yeah.
Yeah, with like the
That's
crest.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, so like there were all those different crests and all that. So like I said, a mixture of fan fiction and my own. And I'm not sure at what point I decided to really make it my own. I wish I could remember, but I could tell you there's probably like 10 drafts at least. And the most recent ones, and by recent I mean like the last 5 to 10 years, I guess, or no, that's too long, maybe 5 years, have definitely been my own for sure.
Mhm.
And where I started like taking it more serious and trying to find the direction and the voice that I wanted to really give out and develop my craft, of course, as well. And I realized within those 5 years that I wanted to go on a more darker, more mature route as opposed to like the fan fiction-y route, which I think a lot of writers go through from what I've heard and read online. That everybody has like a fan fiction phase that they read or write.
Yeah, I feel like fan fiction is a safe place for younger versions of ourselves to figure out how to write. Because, like, it's safe with, you're taking someone else's world and characters, and then you do get to, like, make it your own. So you're kind of playing around with fully made characters already instead of diving in, being like, okay, I'm going to create a whole new character from scratch. I feel like even the books that we write as kids that we think are wholly unique are ours are just other people's characters and worlds regurgitated, which I think is just a safe I don't know, safe space to play around with writing and to see if we like it and to get feedback if you're posting it online bravely, like some. Did you ever post your stuff online?
No, actually, I didn't even know that was a thing back then. Call me like uneducated or living under a rock. I didn't even know that people were posting fan fictions. A friend told me about it like a few years later, and I never really got to check it out. But then, yeah. But these characters, I know you mentioned like that we kind of like not re recycle, but like use fan
Mhm.
fiction characters. These are actually real people that I used at the time.
Yeah.
So these characters, they were real people, people I was friends with in middle school. And then over time, I kind of stripped that all away, just no particular reason, just for story purposes, and changed the names and all that. But I can pinpoint each character what middle school friend it was based on. I don't speak to these people anymore, so that's also probably why I should have changed it. But that's just a fun fact. They were real people at one point.
I feel like that is true. We're either, taking inspiration from other people's characters or people in our everyday lives. I don't feel like that ever fully leaves us though on both fronts. Like I feel like still as a writer, obviously things are I don't know, we're watching things or reading things and we're inspired by them. But then also, I just feel like everyday interactions with people can inspire a certain part of a character or a piece of a character, which
Totally.
is very fascinating to me. Okay, so it seems like the monsters they made us has changed a lot over the years. For the last few years, then, I guess, when was that turning point when you're like, okay, I'm going to be working on this to publish? How were those conversations with yourself going?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to publish it. I knew that for a fact. It never was really ready. Like back then, like I wanted to pursue traditional publishing. I even had like a query letter that I hand wrote, and it was really bad. It was like two sentences. Like, who did I think I was gonna get with those two sentences?
I love that.
It was like for HarperCollins kids, and I'm like, I don't think I was gonna get any representation with two sentences. But the self-publishing route just happened, I guess, in the last 5 years.
Mhm.
And, I just always knew that I wanted to publish it, get it out, and find the right audience for it. Like everybody else, we live in a little delusion and hope it'll become like a TV show or a movie. Um,
I mean, it can
so
happen. That is a dream.
one can dream, yes. So it's always been there that I want to publish it. It was more of like when and like
Mhm.
feeling ready and feeling that the story itself is ready and that I'm sending the message that I want to send out. Because once you put it out, that's
Yeah. I always love, like, asking, why self-publishing versus traditional? Because I feel like both routes are so different, and I am just loving, like, the journey. I have a lot of friends who are self-publishing right now, and it just seems like such a fun journey to go on, but it's also so hard for different reasons than traditional publishing is so hard. So what,
Mhm.
like, made you gravitate towards self-publishing the last 5 years? Like, going
Um,
back to that.
I would have to say two huge reasons that I think a lot of self-publishing authors agree on is creative control. That's a
Mhm.
huge, huge part. I think that's probably like the top reasoning for most people. And then timing, like
Mm.
like it could take years to query, like the query trenches they call it. It could take years to then get a publisher. And I feel like I've already waste is probably dramatic, but spent so many years with putting this on hold that
Yeah.
I didn't want to spend another, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. So it's a little bit impatient, but also setting your own deadlines and within a reasonable like time frame, like not rushing into it. So those are the two reasons. And plus, I like the idea of being able to say at the end of the journey that like I did all this myself to an extent, because obviously you do. Well, it depends who you are. Because some people they do the cover themselves,
Yeah.
they do the formatting themselves, they teach themselves so they have those skills. I did not, so I hired people for that, both formatting, everything. So it depends which way you go about it, but at the same time, you can still say you did it yourself.
Mhm.
And some people really did it themselves, like they did the cover and like I just said. So I'm like a step behind that. I did do it myself with the help of other people.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like some pride in that. And then with traditional, I don't know, I've become very protective over this as well, for
Mm.
working on it for so long. If it was a different story, like I've thought about this many times, and like after this series, I would consider traditional publishing, when I'm less attached to something. But this is like a child and like watched it grow and like dropped it, picked it up. well, you don't drop a child, but yeah. I dropped it, like I stopped paying
Yeah.
attention to it for a little bit and then went back to it. And yeah, it's a lot of attachment, creative control, and not having that patience of
Mhm.
querying and waiting and kind of putting the ball in someone else's court. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather have the control, and if it fails because of myself, then I mean, that's part of the journey. I mean, it could go either way, but I do see pros and cons, especially when it comes to costs.
Mhm.
There are a lot of costs in self-publishing and traditional publishing. There shouldn't be any typical upfront
Mhm.
costs. So there's pros and cons.
Well, I think so far you're doing amazing. I found you solely off of your Instagram posts. I started following you from a reel that I think I saw or a post, but I was instantly hooked. So I feel like you're doing a great job with your marketing on Instagram.
Thank you. I think you're like the second person. The dog's gonna start barking. Second person to say that. I don't know. It's so tough. Social media. It's like
Mhm.
it's draining. Of
Yeah.
like the last week, I like definitely like went downhill mentally with social media, and like I took a break, or I told myself I was gonna take a break, and yeah, I'm still going on, and like engaging at least.
Mhm.
That's another thing. Marketing is probably the hardest part, I'd say. Like, and
Yeah.
especially in such a oversaturated field right now. There's so many books, so many authors, and yeah, I think the algorithms don't help either.
I think they're lying to us when they tell us what the algorithm is, because I don't believe
Yeah,
them.
yeah, I don't really know either. Yeah, I don't know. I really
Yeah.
don't know what to believe either. I
I
just
feel like they're
post and
lying.
post and hope for the best. Like it's just like, how do you have so many followers, but then you get like
Mhm.
the same 20 people see it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Does everybody else just ignore me? I don't know.
I understand that relationship with social media, though. I take breaks. Remember, you even messaged me when I was taking a break. You're like, "How do we stay in contact for, scheduling this?" Because we had to
Hmm.
reschedule a couple times for this interview, but yeah, I guess right now I am thankful that I am not marketing because I give so much props to you and my friends who are doing this. Like the marketing process is not only so intensive in particular, but like you said, this is all you. You don't have a marketing team who's going to tell you the best way to pitch your book and like what is this catchy hook. Like it is you advocating for your book day in and day out, making all the content, getting out there and interacting with people, and you're doing it so well, so, like, major props. I feel like for Instagram marketing, how the heck do you do it? If you don't mind me taking a little pause and asking, like, do you batch a ton of content and then go forward, or how are
So
you
that
doing this?
That would probably be the best approach. Every like advice, like post I've seen, they always say do batch, but it's just for me personally, that's so hard to like sit down and spend the whole day, like, just batch creating when you have life going on. I wish I could batch create. I haven't tried it. There's just always something going on, like
Yeah,
trying to like I mean, I'm sure you can relate, anybody can relate. It's like life is life. And some people can do it, like they batch things up and like then they plan it out for the week. No, I usually create the day before or the day of,
that is so impressive. That is so much.
but it's taking a toll
Yeah,
sometimes. So I've definitely chilled out on like just like you don't need to post every day, I feel like.
yeah,
I had to like tell myself that because like one, it could get repetitive, sometimes it could for depending on the person, and two, like the people aren't really going anywhere,
yeah,
I know people post every day because of the algorithms and all that, but it's just like I don't know, it's like I don't want to be like a slave to technology, and it's so easy to fall into like I have fallen into it,
yeah.
and it takes a toll on your mental health a lot and like burnout. It adds to the burnout if anything.
It really
Um,
does.
so I'm kind of like just taking it easy right now, like once a week and like very light Canva posts. And like I guess as I get closer to release, I'll probably like bump it up a bit,
Mhm.
but it's tough.
Yeah.
I think everybody who is a writer or a bookstagrammer like a
Yeah, and I feel like now, like, no matter what route you take, self-publishing or traditional, you really do have to kind of put yourself out there on socials because
Mhm.
it's the best way to get readers to find out about your book. And like you said, it is kind of hard to kind of rise above the noise. So I think it is so great that there's now multiple people who've told you that your marketing is great because I completely found you through Instagram. So I'm sure there are many others like me out there waiting for this book just based off of what you've been posting into the abyss that is social media.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you're screaming into an abyss sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I want to take it back a little to the writing process because I know this has been a 15-year journey. Are you, I feel like the typical question is like, are you a plotter or a pantser? But I guess just in general, how has that writing process gone when you have like 10 drafts from various stages of your life? Are you reiterating it every single time? Like, are you sitting down and you're going to rewrite the whole book from scratch every single time and you pick it back up again? Or do you actually go through with more of that revision mindset and just kind of clean up chapters as things change?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I was definitely a plotter,
Mhm.
which is really interesting. And then as I got older, I just started like pantsing everything.
I love
And
that. You're opposite, I feel like, of what most people say. That's great.
yeah, I don't know why, or I can't tell you how or why. But it worked. It did and it didn't work out because then I'd be like, oh wow, so like there's that missing, this is missing. So like I created like a plot afterwards. And in terms of like the previous versions, there were full rewrites. Like I would just be like, I'm gonna scrap this, keeping the premise the same, the characters the same, the setting the same, a lot of the things the same, but just enhance it again with the new ideas that I wrote down like in a notebook or now I use my notes app on Apple. So that's kind of like how I went about it. There was never like where I went to like older versions and revised it. It was always like a re-scrap.
Yeah.
Until probably like the last three versions where those started being more revision based and like actually instead of like, all right, I can't keep re-scrapping because then I'll never finish this. The most recent ones, I took a revision approach and started actually creating a plot. So it was a lot of like reading it and then creating like I just outlined it basically, and then went back and looked at the outline and made sure that that all was filled in the right way, even though it wasn't. But that's where you get editors and all that and work on it. So yeah, I wish I was a plotter, but like even now as I start book two, I started like working on it.
Mhm.
I just can't sit and make a plot. I just started writing. I just have a bunch of notes everywhere on my notes app, and I'm gonna try to plot this time. We'll see.
Well, I think that's great. I've done both, and I have friends who do both, and I always admire the pants first approach. I think it makes sense, though. It allows you the creative freedom in that first draft. And then, like you said, you can go back, figure out the plot, make the outline, and then either rewrite it or go in and add the things you need to add. In terms of outlining or when you're looking at your story for a story structure, do you use like a specific story structure that everyone talks about online, like Dan Harmon's story circle or the 7 point plot structure? Like, is there something that you lean towards, or are you just intuitively like, okay, this happened here and it needs, a reaction, and then we'll have another action and so forth?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I was definitely not like I don't know how like academically trained on like the story structures. Like I understand some of them, but I don't really go about it. I just like I write kind of like a TV show would kind of
Yeah.
appear if that makes sense. Where like the scene like this happens and then it's like a climax in the scene and then like the scene ends like on a semi cliffhanger to make you want to go to the next chapter.
Hmm.
Um, that's kind of how I approached it. And when I met with like my developmental editor, she was saying that like, do I use a beat sheet? And it's kind of just like a subtle brag, but like I've never used a beat sheet. And she was like, because like you have the beats, but like there's like one or two beats missing here and there. And then she sent me a beat sheet, and that actually helped me a little bit.
Hmm.
And like get those missing beats that she wanted to see. But no, I've just kind of just like if this happened, and that like I just like if it makes sense in my head, it would make sense on paper. But no, I did follow though for this version, well, this final book, not version, this is it, the three act structure in a
Yeah.
sense, loosely. So the book is divided into three parts. So like you could say like act one, act two, and act three. So that's kind of the only structure that I really lean towards.
Yeah. No, I really like that. I don't know, I do feel like there's help in having story structure if people are the people who like need a plan, like they need
Hmm.
A, B, C, D written out and they follow it to suit. But I do feel like we all consume so much story from, like, the TV shows you love. Like you said, you're looking at this like a TV show that this is kind of inspired and influenced by, and I feel like we all inherently know. Right, I feel like a lot of us who, like, watch a lot of TV, read a lot of books, like, I feel like we know what should come next usually in a story or what we're wanting to
Exactly.
see. So, I like that this was, like, an intuitive process. I like that you also said you think of it as, like, a TV show because right now my process, if you do wanna look into a story structure that I've kind of been obsessed with, is, the 8 sequence story structure, and it treats it like a it's like what TV show writers use for, like, an
Mm,
8-episode, like, miniseries,
okay.
and now I, like, can't do anything else because I watch a lot of TV, like, that is my favorite form of media, like, I love reading, but I love a good TV
Yeah.
show, and so I love when you can like you said, like, you think of, like, a scene or a chapter for either, like, that commercial break or that end of the episode, it's really important.
I'll look into that. Yeah, I mean, like I also, like you said, if it works for some people, that's great. I just never found myself leaning towards it. I just
Mhm.
wrote and hope for not hope for the best. That's it's making it seem like a bad story. But like I just wrote down and thought of it like, well, it has to make sense on paper and like a reaction, like you said earlier, and
Mhm.
like that commercial break, like that would be like the end of the chapter in a sense.
Right. And it seems like not only is this a very plot-driven book, like everything I've seen you write about it seems like a lot is happening, but it seems like it's still very focused around the characters, which I love, like a very character-driven book. So I know you said that, in a really early version when you were younger, it might have been based on people you knew, but what was that character creation like? Because it seems like you have a pretty big cast, because there's 4 main characters, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
so
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a big feat, I feel like, for a book to, have that first book have a huge main cast, and they're all robust and unique in their own way, so how did the characters change over time, and what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so like, as you just mentioned, they were real people at one point, and there's a lot more POVs in earlier versions, believe it
Mm.
or not. There's probably like 6 or 7, but those other POVs didn't get eliminated. They just got downgraded to like secondary characters or like recurring character that comes like maybe once or twice in the story. But I don't know, I just kind of like started putting pieces of myself in the characters, I guess. Like if you broke down the characters, the secondary characters, there's like traits of mine in each of them, or
Mm.
like fears and anxieties, or even insecurities, particularly insecurities. I've definitely like trauma dumped on these characters.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
So yeah, there wasn't like any actual process. I know when I was younger, I used to do like character profiles
Mhm.
on them, and I think I've done them. I did it so often. Like I used to do like eye color, like zodiac,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. I like went down things that nobody would really care about if I really wrote the book. But I think that really did help bring them to life and
Mm.
like make them a real person or as real as they can be in my head. And like I said, like since they've been going through so many changes and the characters kind of stayed the same, just like their names changing or like slight personality changes or dialogue change. Because at one point I feel like they all sounded the same. So I had to like make them sound different. That was like a challenge in the last 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
really giving them their own voice. 'Cause that's one of the biggest challenges I think with POV, multi POV, is making sure they don't sound the same. And that was like a challenge, particularly with the boys for some reason.
Mm.
Both of the 2 male characters, they sounded the same a lot. My editors was saying that. The girls I had nailed down for some reason.
I love
I
that.
think it's 'cause they're probably 2 different types of girls. One's more like a wallflower, and
Yeah.
one's very, like, brave, like, tough girl, sassy. So those are 2 complete spectrums, while the boys are more softies, honestly.
Yeah.
For better words. One's like an asshole softie, the other one's like a softie pushover. So they were very similar, and I had to figure out how to make them sound different. And I finally got to it. But yeah, I know some people have really interesting character creation processes, but I never really had a formal one, which seems to be a recurring theme in all these questions. I just like kind of like winged it.
No, that's great. I feel like that's what most people do, honestly. Now that I've interviewed so many people for this podcast and all the upcoming episodes for this season, it does seem like the majority of us who have been writing for a really long time or have like identified as a writer since like we were a kid and we've always wanted to do this, we just kind of wing it because we've always known we've liked writing and we just
Hmm.
don't really have a process. So that's why I always find it interesting to like ask because I feel like the people who do have like a pretty straightforward process are people who have now published like multiple books because they've done like the whole process from start to finish so many times that they're like, okay, I know my brain now. I know what's going to work and not work. And I do feel like the process is like change with every book. I feel like, do
Hmm.
you feel like that right now, like going into book two? Do you already feel like there's probably already a huge difference because there's not a 15-year time gap
Yeah.
between book one and book two coming out?
I mean, I started it and I was like, how do you write a book too? I, I was like, I've always had book one for
Right.
years. So I really was like, all right, I really started researching a little bit on like sequels, and how to go about them and kind of just like extracting all this information, like different opinions and just trying to teach myself how to really answer a sequel because like you don't want to obviously info dump in the beginning, which
Mhm.
is like a big concern. Like, so I'm still learning, so to be continued.
Yeah, so when you're in the researching phase, because you just said, you're gonna research second books, and then you also talked about the dialogue issue, which I'd love to kind of dive into, where, you wanna make sure the POVs sound different and the dialogue sounds different. Do you have like an approach to research? Like, do you just read every book in your house and just kind of look at the things you're focused on, or is there another way you go about it?
By research, I mean like I just Google stuff and like
Love
different
it.
articles, whether it's like opinion pieces or like a lot of like authors have, blogs and all that, tips, advice, stuff like that. And then just like seeing like some of the comments as well on that and, real life examples. Just because I feel like that's how I extract information, just reading like bits and pieces from everywhere,
Mm,
not one big resource. Because then I would just get bored, maybe. I don't know. Like I need to go everywhere to see different angles.
yeah.
So that's kind of like where I'm at now with like the sequel in terms of
Mhm.
figuring out how to approach it. Because it's the same as writing a book, I guess, but like it's like how do you introduce everything that happened without
Right.
info dumping it in the first chapter? So I'm still learning how to do that, and hopefully it's not as much of a challenge as presenting. I mean, the first draft everyone always says like for yourself to just
Yeah.
write it out. So that's kind of where I need to also force myself is just stop editing while writing, stop overthinking it, just get this first bones out there. So
Yeah, and in terms of I really would love to dive into the POV conversation because I feel like that is so common. So are all of these POVs first person then, or are they third?
no, no, they're third. They're
Okay,
third.
so then you wanna make
Yeah.
sure their dialogue then, like you said, really sounds different. So you got that feedback from your editor. What was that process like then, where you had to reread everything and go, "Okay, how do I do this?"
Well, I really sat down and was like thinking, what kind of character do I want it to be like? Like, what
Mm,
do I want them to sound like if they were like on a TV show or like an audiobook or something, and kind of get that aligned with their personalities. So I started like, looking at the words that I was using and like give them different choice of words for certain things. Like for one of the boys, like he would be more formal when he speaks,
mm,
and the other one would be more casual in the way he speaks. Like instead of saying like going to, he'll be like gonna, like I'm gonna go do this.
yeah.
And then the other more formal approach would be like, oh, I'm going to do this, stuff like that. And then like the way they react to situations, that was something else that I looked at. And like if somebody like push one character, how would that character react as opposed to the other one? Like, the Lola, she would have been like, "Watch where you're going," like blah blah blah. Like, "Are you blind?" Like something like that, something really rude and like
Yeah.
sassy. And then like the other character would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I should have watched where I was going." So I started looking at it that way. There's a lot of reading out loud. That was
Yeah.
something that was new for me. I didn't really read out loud my drafts until this year, and it helped a lot. Sounds like you sound a little crazy talking to yourself, and like I had to make sure like I'm home alone so nobody else is listening. But that helped a lot. And yeah, I mean, it was just really I also did like a little chart actually where it was just really straightforward and it was just like, all right, how did you want this person to sound? And I was like sassy,
Mm-hmm.
modest, kind of jerkish, like kind of like that. It was a really loose, rough draft chart. So that helped a bit. And just again, for me, at least like I've had these characters for so many years that I
Yeah.
knew them really well. It was just making sure on paper it matched the way they were in my head. And I didn't realize at the time that they weren't like I was writing it out like the same because of the way I spoke. So it's just a matter of like fleshing it out and just
Mm-hmm.
going through each one. I basically dedicated a revision to just dialogue at one point. So I only focused on dialogue and went through the whole thing from first page to last page on the dialogue.
That's great, and honestly really validating because I also read my chapters out loud and I act them out. So that is validating to me to hear as well because I think it's a great trick for, does my dialogue sound weird coming
Hmm.
out of my mouth? Like it should sound natural. So I love that piece of advice. And then do you have a favorite character through this process? You have four that you know really well. Is there one that kind of shines above the rest, or is it like children? You can't really pick one.
Oh no, there's favorites. I don't think it shows on paper though, but I really like Lola as I bring her up as an example. She was really
Mhm.
fun to write. Some of her influences came from like, Blair Waldorf from like Gossip Girl.
Yeah,
So it's like if Blair Waldorf was like supernatural in a sense. So a
that.
lot of that and like the confidence of like that and like the theatrical dialogue where like it's not something somebody would really say on a day-to-day basis, but it works because of the personality
Mhm.
for her. And then the other female character, who's technically the main female character, Dorothy, she was a lot of fun to write because she goes to the most supernatural transformation.
Mm.
That's what I can say without, I guess, spoiling much. And I got to explore a lot of like, oh, like losing your mind kind of thing with her and like basically just figuring out like her place in this new world because she's the new person in town,
Yeah,
and the outsider. And then the boys were fun to write too. I don't know. I just liked writing the girls.
that's okay. I feel like there's always one character that people love the most, even if they don't want to admit it. I feel like there's always one that people gravitate towards.
Yeah, I've been doing like a small poll with my ARC readers so
Mm,
far.
that's fun.
It's not finalized yet since there still are people still reading it, but right now Lola is at the top and and Aiden, which is interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to see the final numbers.
That's already fun that you did a whole ARC reading team and you're getting feedback. How, I guess I'll take a little detour before I talk more about Driftmoor and the book specifics, but how has that process been? Like, I feel like I would be, I don't know, freaking out and probably looking at my email like every 2 seconds. How have you been doing it?
That that's been me. It's been nerve-wracking, honestly. I have not been well. And hopefully it's like a learning experience, you know. I'm sure maybe not, but maybe book two I'll be less nerve-wracking,
Mhm.
nerve-wracked. But it has been, you know, it's very vulnerable and like you're getting
Yeah.
your first actual feedback from people, complete strangers. Like most of my ARC readers, I've never met any of them ever. I've just connected to them through social media here and there. So it's a very, you know, stressful time. But it has been positive so far. So that's been like
That's
validating
great.
and reassuring. But then you're like, are they just being nice? It's just like a lot of second guessing, imposter syndrome. It's everything in the mix.
Yeah.
And I wish I had advice to give to people about how to handle it, but I'm not the right person to give you advice because I'll be like, I mean, I guess if you have just self-control to
Oh,
not check every single day like I have, then that would be the best approach. Because I definitely lacked that self-control in
I
terms of just
can't.
I want
Come in.
no worries.
No, I feel like I'd be checking every, like, second of every day.
Yeah, yeah. And then you know, there's that dread that you know it's gonna happen. There's gonna be that 1 star or 2 star, and it's gonna hurt probably, but it's part of being a writer and a
Mhm.
published writer. Because even the best books, like I repeat this to myself so many times, like even the best books have ones and twos,
Yes.
and it just wasn't for that reader.
Mhm.
But it's so hard in the beginning because you want to check those early reviews because what else do you have to work off of, you know? Because
Yeah.
they always say as an author, you shouldn't check your reviews, but that's easy to say when you have like thousands of reviews. But like when you have those first like 10, you know,
Mhm.
you're curious and you want to see like how else you're gonna know whether it was a good book or not, or whether you're doing the right or something's wrong, or like plot holes are here and there. You could always ask for feedback from ARC readers, of course, but you
Mhm.
want to see those early reviews. So that's another thing, having that self-control to like maybe set a schedule of check the reviews once a week, you know,
Mm.
or every 2 weeks or something, as opposed to like me, where it's like, all right, it's been 4 hours. Let me see if that's been updated. So that's definitely like a tip that I would give is just like build that self-control.
Yeah. And do you have something then in your head that, like, you really hope readers come away with from your book, whether it's, like, a theme that they're picking up on or a feeling that they have when they finish it?
Yeah, I hope that, you know, they feel the emotions that I've like written out. I feel like I definitely poured out a lot of like insecurities into this book with a supernatural twist.
Mhm.
So it's like definitely a book on the heavier side. So I hope they feel the emotion that I'm trying to convey. I'm not trying to break somebody's heart or make them cry or anything, but I do hope they feel like what I'm trying to say and all that. And then like with the generational trauma, which is a big theme in the book,
Yeah.
that you know, like everybody has some kind of trauma from their family or something, and it will affect you, or
Mm.
it might affect you, and it's kind of like how you push through it in a sense. Granted, that might not apply to my characters because they have a lot more to go through, like in terms of figuring themselves out and discovering their families and all that. So that's kind of what I would hope people get from this.
Yeah, and I noticed that, by reading, like, the synopsis of the book and looking at your social media that there's this theme of owning your legacy or being crushed by it. Seems like is kind of what these 4 characters are battling on the pages. Did you I don't know, did you set out to do that from the beginning? Or through this process, did that just kind of start to happen? Like, did these themes arise as you refined each draft?
Yeah, so the themes started happening probably in the last, I keep saying 5 years because that's a good time frame, but the last 5 years where I realized like these are the themes I want to touch upon.
Mm.
Early drafts were kind of like no real theme, kind of just like supernatural fun and all that. And then I was like, all right, I think this is really where I want to go. Like a big inspiration for that choice was Haunting on Hill House on
Love
Netflix.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's a really underrated show,
Yeah,
or like it scares people off.
yeah.
I feel like everyone I've spoken to, like in my life, they're like, "No, I don't like horror," or like, "I don't want to get jumps." I'm like, "I like jump scares." I'm like, "There's like probably a couple of jump scares, but it's so much deeper than that."
Mhm.
And I love that twist that they did, like on that generational trauma and a supernatural aspect. So that
Yeah.
was a big like inspiration for that direction.
And I guess that's a good segue into me talking a little bit more about horror, because I know this is labeled as a little darker with like a mix of horror and that supernatural element. How do you go about writing the horror scenes or scenes that are, I guess, are uneasy or like handle those bigger emotions? And what do you think makes horror effective?
That's a really big question.
I know. I know.
So I will preface that I am not like a horror like crazy horror reader. I did grow up on horror films with my mother. She would make me watch them as like a kid. In term like, and even earlier drafts had no real horror, and I have to say it's a mild horror, a supernatural horror. And I don't know. I just kind of like where it felt right, and I'll just put a generic answer. But uh, I don't know. I have to think about this one.
Yeah. I know, that's
Uh,
a big question.
I mean, I definitely like a few the horror points that I touched upon were like things that would scare me, I guess,
Mm,
like insects, like stuff like that, or particularly insects. Actually, I just realized that's a really like that appears like 3 times in the book, or like realizing whether like what you're seeing is real or not. I feel
mm,
like that's always like a scary thing to think about, or like when you're like in a dream. And it feels so real, and then like you wake up and you're like, oh, well, that was a dream. I threw in some sleep paralysis involved,
Oh,
which I know that which is like a thing that people like freak out about. I had a few episodes of that when I was like younger, and
yeah.
I still to this day remember them so vividly. So that's like a huge inspiration with that sleep paralysis scene. But yeah, I wish I had a better answer for this question.
I would be scared because I hate bugs. So if there are insect horror, I will definitely be uneasy. So we can also circle back to Driftmoor because we started with place and we have
Hmm.
Driftmoor as this setting and everything that you've been posting about it really just it feels so real even through your Instagram posts like it's steeped in all this myth and history. And so how did you go about kind of creating this town that encompasses our characters and the boarding school in general?
Yeah, so earlier drafts, it really focused on the boarding school. Like the town was just like, yeah, this school is in a town. The town was never talked about ever again in the earlier drafts. And I think because I grew up, like not that I outgrew YA, because it is still technically YA,
Mm.
just a heavier, mature YA, like upper YA. It's kind of like a new term that's been thrown around.
Yeah.
I didn't want to focus too much on like the boarding school and more like on the town itself. And the like real inspiration came from Newport, Rhode Island. I visited there probably like 8 years ago, and that was like the clicking point where I was like, this is literally the book. I was like,
Yeah.
this is it. I was like, because it was always like a coastal town, but never really cemented it. Like in my head, it was like always like blurry, if that makes sense, you know?
Mhm.
And since it was so early on that I didn't really worry about establishing the setting, but Newport, Rhode Island really was like the tipping point where I was like, this is it. Like the mansions and all that there. I'm not sure if you ever visited.
No, but I've seen, like, photos and it's on my list.
Yeah, it's I'm not like a huge history buff or anything, but like I can appreciate it, you
Mhm.
know? So like when I went to all the mansions, I was like, all right, so what if like the characters still lived in these mansions and like how their lives would be and like add like a darker twist to it. And that really was like was cemented this setting. And then, as I got exposed more to dark academia and all that, which was like really resurgence in the last couple of years, I feel like it's like looking back, it's like I knew you like dark academia, but I didn't really have a name for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like I've always liked Gothic architecture
Mhm.
and like foggy scenes and like Twilight, Vampire Diaries. I go back to that all the time and like that old town kind of vibes. And I guess that all like I just put it all together, took real life inspirations from Newport, and it became Driftmore. I mean, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I feel like in terms of setting, like, again, from the marketing, you've created such a big atmosphere and a place that really, like, holds these characters. In terms of course, I just lost where I was. All these characters, is it correct that they're, like, marked by a different type of curse?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So is this burden or the curse that they're carrying, without getting too spoilery, is that all reflective of these burdens that they have with their families and their past? Or does it fit their personality in some way? Like, how did you kind of choose who gets what?
That's a really good question. So it's like a mixture of like it is reflective of their family, and like the way their families act and like present themselves to society. And even from like some of them are really literal, like on what how the family became wealthy in
Mm.
terms of. So like I mean, I felt spoiling, but one family they built their wealth through like a shipping industry, so like in the ocean and all that.
Yeah.
The book cover has a siren tail on it, so that gives that. So some of it is reflective of the family,
Mm.
but it kind of just happened. I mean, some of it also goes back to like earlier drafts, like the abilities they had then. Like one of them always was connected to fire,
Mm.
so that stayed consistent through all the drafts. But I touched upon a mythology with this, like hellhounds and all that. So that stayed with that. So it's a mixture of the way their families are, the way they present themselves, and just kind of like what worked and what I wanted to be in the story. But the curses, yeah, they were all started because of their first ancestor that came to Driftmore. And whether that was like they made like a deal with like I keep it vague. I don't say deal with the devil
Yeah.
supernatural entity, whatever you want to call it, a Faustian bargain, but they all did it for like greed, power, safety, and wealth. Those are like the four reasons.
Yeah. That's great, and I feel like already you're already touching on how many supernatural elements you have in this book. How I don't know, how do I wanna frame this? I feel like all supernatural elements, at least are interesting to me because they're all passed down through myth and folklore, and it's all
Hmm.
through, spoken word stories over centuries and centuries of time, whether it's someone who saw something or thought they saw something, or it's to explain away a weather phenomena that someone didn't understand at the time. Like it is all deeply rooted in history and myth and folklore. How did you go about deciding like what supernatural elements did you want in this book?
So that's a good question as well. So a huge influence for two of the supernatural elements came from Teen Wolf. So like the Banshees and the Hellhounds, that came from that. And then like sirens, I've always been into like nautical stuff, so I just knew like I had to have a siren, some kind of like mythology with that. And then the other one, which I won't say because it might spoil,
Yeah, fair.
that I don't. There's a one that I don't touch upon,
Yeah.
but that came from the TV show Heroes. Have you ever watched
Oh
that?
my gosh, Frank. That is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. That is an underrated TV show.
Yeah, I agree. And it ended so like
I can't
abruptly.
even talk about it. I can't even talk about it. My family was obsessed with that show. We loved it. And then when they tried to, like, remake it, we were all so excited, and we watched it, and I was like, "What is this? What is
Yeah,
this?"
it was bad.
Ugh.
I haven't watched it in years, but it was so good.
Mhm.
And so that was where the fourth one came from. So
Ooh,
it's not really mythology.
I'm
It
really
could
excited
be,
now.
yeah, it could be mythology. I mean, I did look into it, and there are different mythologies of that ability.
Mm,
So there's no right or wrong way to look at it. But that's basically how I came up about it, really.
very
There was
cool.
no
No rhyme or reason, just I want it in there, which is the best way to go about it, honestly. That's kind of how we all do this. We are, creating the story and we get to I think that is my favorite part of like storytelling and why I like interviewing people because no matter how original something is, we're all taking inspiration from everything we consume or see on a daily basis. And it's so fun to hear the origin stories of something that had a profound impact on someone and how it made its way into the book. I feel like every writer has some piece of media that they were like, I was obsessed with this as a kid and it had to worm its way in there somehow. So I usually end with a rapid fire section, just some fun questions. So, which character from your own work would you grab a drink with?
Lola. Even
Perfect.
though, wait, that's actually she's not of age.
Hey, you can grab coffee with them. That's
Okay,
fine.
that kind of drink.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
grab any type of drink.
So sorry, you said drink, and I went straight to a cocktail.
Coffee's good too. Grab a coffee with Lola.
There's a coffee shop in Driftmoor that is a
Cool.
small setting, the Salty Dog.
I love that. Okay, so you're getting a coffee at the Salty Dog with Lola. That is perfect. What's something totally unrelated to writing that you're obsessed with right now?
Interior design.
Ooh, I love
S-
that
uh
answer.
since I've just lived here, it's been a year, so like I'm like always looking at like how to frame things like a gallery wall or like
Mhm.
change the rugs are so annoying. I hate rugs.
Frank, you and I are the same. Rugs are the bane of my existence. My husband knows that if we have to decide on a new rug, he just doesn't speak to me for like a week because I spiral about rugs. I don't know what it is about rugs that are so hard.
I agree, they're hard. And curtains, that's a new challenge that
Yeah,
I'm getting into. Just went to look at some curtains today, and I was like, why are so many different shades of beige and white
I
and like
know.
patterns?
And it's just hard to
Um,
visualize. I feel like curtains and rugs, for some reason, I agree. They're hard for me to like put into my space. Yeah.
100%.
Well, the frame behind you is great, and the pillow
Oh,
next to you is amazing. So, I'm loving
thank
the
you.
interior design that I can see.
Thank you.
And then I not only love CW shows, but I do love reality TV shows, mostly like competition reality shows. And is there a reality show you think you would totally crush?
That's not where the question was going. I thought you were gonna say like which one you would like to like which one you would like watching. No,
None of them.
I watch Survivor a lot, and I was like, I would
We're the
never.
same. I'm watching
I was
every
like,
season of Survivor right now.
same, and I'm like, I could do that. I'm like, yeah, no,
I
the
think we
challenge,
could. We have to have
not the sleep,
confidence. I feel
not
like
the sleeping.
no, you're right. I feel like I love Survivor. I love Big Brother. I feel like Big Brother would drive me a little insane. I always say I think I can do Survivor, even though I love camping, but like if a bug touches me, I freak out.
Exactly.
If I have like a bug bite, I like cry. So I know I probably would have a horrible time on Survivor. But hey, Survivor casting crew, if you're watching this for some reason, put Frank and I on the show. We'll be
I'll
amazing.
be I'll be one of those people that asked, "Do you want to send me home?" at Tribal.
That is crazy. I just watched one of the newer seasons where like I feel like 3 people in a row were like, "Honestly,
Yeah.
get me out of here. I miss my bed." And I'm like, "That's insane." But honestly, fair. That's fair.
Yep. I know exactly which seasons you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, so are you also I'm watching like I've watched from the beginning. I'm finally in the 40s. It has
I'm
been
pr
years.
I'm on 47, I think.
Well, I think I am too.
Yeah, 47.
Yeah, that is so funny. Yeah, I'm on 47. 48 is the newest, and I'm trying to finish before 49 hits.
Can't keep up.
I know. So excited. Or did 49 just hit? And 50 is the next one. I don't know. But I love Survivor. I also would like to think that I would crush Survivor, even though I know I would probably cry every single night in the pouring rain on bamboo.
Yeah, and no like fire or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not good at any of that. But I'll still try out one day. Still try out one day. And then if you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Easily distracted.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Just easily distracted. I love that.
Very much so.
And then where can listeners connect with you and find your work?
So Instagram is how we connected. TikTok, which it's stressful. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I don't have like a X or Twitter or anything. I think it's better to have, consolidate your social
Yeah,
media and not I tried Threads and that was just like too much. It's
it's
too
too
many,
much.
yeah, too many outlets. I think two is good enough for me.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the work, since I am self-publishing, it won't be in traditional bookstores like Barnes and Nobles or like Waterstones. I think that's England's. I didn't even know what that was until this year. But so for now, it will be through Amazon. I do plan on trying my website and see what kind of like reception I get from that. But I will definitely also be trying to get into some local Barnes and Nobles because I know that's a thing that some indie authors
Yeah.
are successful with. So that's worth trying. And then all the ebook platforms, so like Kindle, Apple Books, Barnes and Noble's Nook, Kobo, which again just learned about that this year. So all of that.
Perfect. And then what day is your book coming out?
October 1st.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much for coming and chatting today. It was so much fun. I cannot wait to read this book. I already know from everything you've said that I'm going to absolutely love it. But thank you for giving your time and chatting with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Frank J. Camacho as much as I did having it. His book, The Monsters They Made Us, is out now. If you are a Kindle reader, you can buy it on Kindle. You can also buy his book on Amazon. Go and support Heirs of Driftmoor series with book 1, The Monsters They Made Us. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with your writer friends or friends who read and want to pull back the curtain a little bit more on an author's journey. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, you can go ahead and follow so you never miss an episode, as well as leaving a review, which always helps us. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.